On this fine morning, I welcome all the dignitaries, principal of our college, vice principal, all the participants and resource persons, which are present for this online national workshop being jointly organized by the Department of History, Chhatrapati Shivaji College, Satara, and Center of Korean Studies, School of Language, Literature and Culture Studies, JNU, New Delhi. Uh, Once again, I welcome all the resource persons, dignitaries, and now may I request the head of the Department of History, Chhatrapati Shivaji College, Satara, Dr. Masar DB, to introduce today's uh, chief of the inaugural function and chairman of this inaugural session.
Good morning, everyone. I welcome to all the dignitaries, Honorable Principal, Dr. Savankar Sir, Secretary of Registration Sanstha, Professor Rushikesh, Chairperson of Center for Korean Studies, JNU Delhi, Professor Satyanshu Srivastav from JNU Delhi, resource persons Prabhakar Kolekar, Punishlo Kahil, Solapur University Swabur, and Dr. Dilip Aldar from KBP Engineering College, Satara. Professor Mrs. Anisa Mujawar Madam, Vice Principal of our college. Dr. Anil Vaure, Accuracy Coordinator of our college. Also, my all colleagues, Professor Anil Kokate, Professor Manor Nikam, Vikas Elmar, Dr. D.D. Korde, and Professor Mahadev Chande. Today we are going to organize workshop on use of innovative teaching learning methods in history. Through this workshop, today we discuss about some innovative teaching learning methods. In Marathi, इतिहास म्हणजे असे असे घडले असे असे घडले हे सांगणे म्हणजे इतिहास असं इतिहासाचार्य विका राजवाड यांनी म्हटलेलं आहे. हे असं असं घडलं हे सांगणं हे गोष्टी रूपात असावं असं इतिहासामध्ये सुरुवातीला मांडलं जात होतं. आणि मग इतिहास शिकवताना कसं शिकवावा तर तो एखाद्या नाटकाच्या स्वरूपात शिकवावा असं मानलं जात होतं. परंतु बदलत्या काळात ज्या काही शिकवण्याच्या आणि शिकण्याच्या नवीन पद्धती आलेल्या आहेत त्यापैकी आज आपण ज्याचा वापर करतो ते ऑनलाईन अशा अनेक पद्धती आज आपल्या समोर आहेत. त्याबद्दल आज या वर्कशॉपमध्ये आपण चर्चा करणार आहोत. तर आणखी एक मी आपल्या सर्वांचं स्वागत करतो आणि माझं प्रास्ताविक थांबवतो.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your introduction. Now, may I request today's chief guest or the chief of the function who is going to inaugurate this national workshop, Honorable Professor Ravitesh.
A very good morning to all of you. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, we can hear.
Yes, sir. You are audible.
So, a very good morning to all of you. Professor Dhanaji Masal, Head of Department of History, Dr. Bithal Shivankar, Principal, and Secretary Rayat Shikshan Sanstha, Satara, and distinguished guests, dear participants, and students. So first of all, I on behalf of Center for Korean Studies, School of Language, Literature and Culture Studies, JNU, welcome all the participants who have registered for this very relevant national level hands-on training and workshop on use of innovative teaching learning methods, which is being organized by History Department of Chhatrapati Shivaji College, Satara, uh, jointly with our center under the aegis of Rashtriya Uchchatar Shiksha Abhiyan of Government of India. And this, as we know, that in education, especially in this present context during pandemic, where digital education has become a dominant mode of learning and teaching. And in this process, everything is being offered on the digital platforms. So there are pros and cons. And as a teacher, we have to see how we are able to effectively carry out the teaching learning process. So we have uses of technology on one part, and other component, which is a major component, is the academic part. Now that technological constraints are more or less not in our hand. This is an administrative part of the university or the college. But the academic part, we as an academician, we have to see how we can do our best to adjust to this new environment and try to disseminate the knowledge through digital platform. And within this whole process of teaching learning process, we see that student engagement has been one of the major challenges that we as a teacher have been facing. So how to overcome that problem of and encourage this student engagement? So we have to make an effort to ensure that teaching and learning process, a student keeps intact his or her curiosity, interest, optimism, passion towards the subject that he has been opted and been attending through online mode. So after this pandemic is over, we are going to incorporate online mode of teaching and learning also. So it is going to be a blended mode of teaching and learning. So there are challenges, subject-wise challenges also. So in science also we have challenges like because it is majorly dependent on the lab work. So how virtual labs can be incorporated in online mode. So such issues are there. Particularly in subjects concerning to social science and humanities. Today we are going to have this workshop, particularly with a focus on history. So this will be an interesting event today for the participants to have a hands-on experience on innovative teaching methodologies, which will be helpful for a whole learning and teaching process. In a very in a subject like history, normally it is very important to grasp the historical the elements, that the methods through which we are going to disseminate knowledge about history. So through these well-devised lectures today, I am sure that the participants are going to learn about the various aspects of the learning teaching strategies, which will encourage the students to use their imagination to go into deep and engage with the content of the lesson, especially in history. So I wish all the best for the successful deliberations of today's hands-on workshop, and Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
I request today's chairperson of this inaugural function, Vice Principal of our college, Honorable Professor Dr. Anisa Mujha.
Yes.
Good morning, Honorable Professor Ravikesh, the head of the Department of History, Professor Dr. Masal, coordinator of this training, Professor Nikam, Honorable Professor Srivastav, and my dear participants. It is a great honor for us to be associated with JNU for today's training. As a discipline, history holds a specific place among the disciplines of humanitarian cycle of educational programs of higher education, regardless of university specialities. History plays an important role in the course of formation of a citizen and development of critical thinking of a personality as an element of human culture. However, new standards require a drastic reduction of the classroom hours for studying a history course. Students often complain that history is boring and irrelevant. This is because much of the teaching of history has been reduced to a recitation of information. However, history teacher can make history exciting by discussing current or relevant problems and seeing where such problems lead back and forth across the centuries. By doing this, history teachers can become best general educators. The new standards require a drastic reduction of the classroom hours for studying a history course by the students of non-humanitarian specialities. Hence, teaching of history demands up-to-date approaches, methods, and also means. Nowadays, we all know that history is the most preferred subject for the candidates preferring for UPSC and MPSC examinations. If we want to sustain the interest of the students for this subject, teachers have to follow a well-planned teaching method with excellent knowledge of the subject. The traditional lecture method can be accompanied by maps, charts, worksheets, etc. Even a good dictionary can be prepared for students, which will make them easy to understand some terms and concepts from history. Professor Ravikesh has just now referred to virtual laboratories also. Different teaching aids like the wooden replica of Ashoka pillar, models of various monuments, PowerPoint presentations, storybooks based on great Indians and world personalities can be used. Along with reviews and supervised studies, dramatization of historical events will increase interest in history. Use of music and films also appeals to students. To bring innovations into practice, teachers should be very enthusiastic. Abraham Lincoln had said, "We cannot escape history." It means that for modern civilization, the study of history not only provides subject knowledge, but also helps to create value system for the development of society as a whole. This hands-on training in collaboration with JNU and JNU Center for Korean Studies will certainly help the participants and increase their resourcefulness and competence. And with this hope, I wish you all a good academic career. Thank you very much.
Thank you, madam, for your guidance for this online national workshop on the use of innovative teaching learning methods in history. Now, may I request Mr. Satyanshu Srivastav, Assistant Professor from Center for Korean Studies, School of Language, Literature and Culture Studies, JNU, to express the vote of thanks for this inaugural function of this national workshop.
Thank you. Namaskar to everyone and a very good morning. Honorable Principal Dr. Vitthal Shivankarji, Honorable Vice Principal Professor Anisa Mujhavarji, HOD, Department of History, Dr. Dhanaji Masal, Chairperson, Center for Coding Studies, Professor Ravikesh, esteemed faculty members, participants, and my dear students. It gives me an immense pleasure to be present here today. And as we all know, that teaching is one of the most influential jobs. A teacher can shape the life of a person through his teaching. You know, one of the most important quality that I feel a teacher should always possess is adaptability. So it is important that a teacher is a lifelong learner, someone who learns, who adapts with the changing environment to best cater his students. A teacher's biggest challenge is to successfully make his student understand the subject. And you all will agree with me. And it is true that every teacher has his own style of teaching, but it is equally true that some teachers become students' favorite and some don't. Why is it so? I think the extra effort that few teachers put in order to make learning easy for their students makes all the difference. Now, this extra effort involves devotion, creativity, innovation, different kind of approaches, and things like that. And this is a kind of adaptation or customization that a teacher does to best cater his students. Now, fortunately or unfortunately, we are living in a world today that is rapidly changing. Times like today, when we are amid a pandemic of this scale that calls for innovative approaches in education, we have to make the best use possible of the technological advancement that is available on our fingertips today. So it is the need of the hour that teachers develop innovative, creative, and interactive and efficient contents using these technological benefits or facilities that we have to best serve their dharma of being a teacher, guide, or a guru. I'm extremely happy that Department of History at Chhatrapati Shivaji College, Satara took this initiative to hold a national workshop and a hands-on training on the use of innovative teaching learning methods. And we are proud to be partner institution in this event. I have been asked to deliver a formal vote of thanks. So, am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes,
so,
sir.
and I've been, so I'm on behalf of Center for Korean Studies and JNU, I would like to thank, first of all, the Government of India and the program RUSA for actually sponsoring this workshop. Chhatrapati Shivaji College, Satara, Department of History, Honorable Principal Dr. Vitthal Shivankarji, under whose mentorship such an event is being conceptualized. Honorable Vice Principal Dr. Anisa Mujawar Madam, Professor Ravikesh, my Chairperson of Center for Korean Studies, who was very encouraging for this event and agreed to partner on a very short notice, I must say. Professor Ravikesh, you would be glad to know he's also the Chairperson of a newly established Special Center for E-Learning in JNU and is currently extremely busy in developing online degree, diploma, and certificate courses. And I'm happy to share that many of such programs will soon be available to all the students in the country and abroad. I would also like to thank Professor Dhanaji Masal, HOD, Department of History, for being the driving force behind this event. Professor Manohar Nikam, my dear friend and the coordinator of this workshop. The resource persons for today, Dr. Aldar Dilip and Dr. Kolekar Prabhakarji for sparing their time and expertise for the workshop today. Professor Dr. Subhash V. Karande, Dr. A.G. Nimase, Dr. A.K. Waware, Dr. Kokate AD, for chairing different sessions today. And above all, to all the participants and students who have joined from all over the country. And apparently, there are few students have been told that they are joining from Korea and other countries as well. So a very warm welcome to all of you, and many congratulations to all the organizers, and thank you for making us part of this event today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Satyamsu, sir. Now we all are eagerly waiting for the first session to start. For this session, we will be taking the guidance from Dr. Aldar Dilip, Associate Professor, KB PCOE from Satara. I request my colleague, Assistant Professor Nikam sir, to introduce Dr. Aldar Dilip.
Welcome to all. Thanks for Dr. Dilip Aldar is working now KBP Engineering College at Satara. His working area IoT, machine learning application, wireless communication, cognitive radio automation, machine learning approaches. Yeah, he is related to electronic department. So he also expert lecturer to various conferences. He delivered lectures to various colleges and homes. So he conducted 45 workshops at state and national levels as a resource person on signal processing, wireless communication, IoT, MATLAB application to engineering and technology, Python optimization techniques, research methodology and research tools including LaTeX for faculty and students at different colleges of Maharashtra and Karnataka. So his professional affiliations: LMISTE, Associate Member of Institution of Engineers, AMIE, Senior Member, IAENG, Member of Association of Computer Electronics and Electrical Engineers, Technology. So he also member of Internet Society, ISOC, member of Object Web Open Source Software Community. So his biodata is very big. So he is reviewer, working as a reviewer for different journals from IEEE, Journal of Industrial Engineering, Springer, Elsevier Publication Academy Publisher, Finland, IETE Journal, IAENG Journal, IGI Global Application. So he also editorial board of member editorial board of International Journal of Advances in Electronics Engineering published by IRED USA. So member editorial board of the International Journal of Advancement in Communication Technologies published by IRED USA. So member of editorial board of the International Journal of Advancement in Electronics and Electrical Engineering published by IRED USA. So he is such a nice personality. He is master in electronics field. So we got such as a good chance from Aldar sir. So I welcome to Aldar sir and I request to him, please deliver your lecture. Thanks, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Now may I request Dr. Aldar Dilip to deliver his lecture and guide us or guide all the participants of this national workshop on the topic effective teaching methods and tools for the part 1. Dr. Aldar Dilip, sir.
Good morning to you all. Nikam sir, will you please ensure, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. I'll just share my screen.
Yes, sir, you can.
Sir, screen sharing.
Yeah, available, sir. Now available.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So you can share. Permission.
Okay. Will you see my screen? Can you see my screen, sir? Okay. Thank you.
Continue. Hello, sir. Your voice is audible. Please continue, sir.
Thank you.
We have shared the screen, your screen.
Thank you, sir. Good morning once again. Thank you for having me over in this workshop or training program, Innovative Teaching Learning Methods in History. I'm very glad to have here in this workshop. My session will be divided into two parts. The first part will be related to effective teaching learning methods or techniques. And second part will be effective teaching learning tools, which will help us to aid the teaching learning process, improve the teaching learning process, or help us to facilitate it in better way in order to engage the student, in order to interact with the student, in order to deliver the content in better way. So primarily, I'll be focusing on the first section that is related to different techniques of effective teaching learning. What exactly we mean effective teaching learning? As Professor Srivastava and Professor Ravikesh mentioned, it is essential, or also Professor Masal sir mentioned, engagement of the student is very essential part in present era. As we are shifting the process of having discussion or a real-time classroom to the online platform, and we have to use the online platforms, and even in the class we have to have the mechanism and method to engage the student, make the student attention in order to receive the content effectively. The thing that we consider here is engage and challenge the learner to achieve their personal best. Students are here with us to get maximum from the teacher or the faculty. But the way we are going to deliver the content, the way we are going to disseminate the knowledge is really going to help the student to get achieve their best. Or importantly, we have to ensure whether the student attention span in the class of 1 hour or the 45 minutes is a maximum, or students are getting deviated to some other things than focusing on the content that we are delivering in the class. The method where the students are active participants as an individual and as a member of collaborative group is referred as effective teaching learning. And in order to achieve the effective teaching learning, in order to use the effective teaching learning, what are the ways, what are the different methods are there? There are numerous methods. There are numerous ways to engage the student, collaborate the student. But in this session, I'm going to focus on few of them, and most of us are familiar with those things. The first one I'm going to discuss up to certain extent. It is not feasible and possible even to discuss in detail of the each and every technique of effective delivery or effective teaching learning. The first one I'm going to discuss here will be a project-based learning. Second will be a design thinking, which is the new approach and new methodology recently every organizations in STEM, specifically engineering, science and technology, people are focusing, even the people from all the disciplines are trying to impart or trying to use design thinking methodology in order to deliver the content, in order to engage the student, in order to provide the best things to the student and the best content to the student. And finally, which is very relevant to the today's topic, that is what the storytelling. This is what basically very common thing on common methodology teachers from history are using. But the teacher from other disciplines, how to use this methods, and even the people from all the discipline that include science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, they are using these techniques, this technique for delivering the content and engaging the student and imparting the knowledge and providing the best to them as far as knowledge dissemination is concerned. The first I'll be considering for the discussion here, that is nothing but the project-based learning. This is one of the concept usually we consider in other terminology, that is specifically referred as the parallel terminology, which is used is nothing but experiential learning. We may refer this experiential learning, and again we can extend it as a project-based learning, which is very popular in higher education and the school education even. The concept that we discuss here, we have to understand exactly what the project-based learning here and how we can use the project-based learning in our teaching learning process. What exactly the project-based learning is? The project-based learning is basically referred as a constructive learning, a methodology which will be focusing on, putting emphasis on learning by doing, by allowing the student to perform certain tasks, and the faculty or the teacher has to work as a mentor or facilitator in the context of project-based learning. It will help the student to do certain sort of task and the activity the teacher has assigned or the students have opted. This may be the task where any individual or the group of students or the team of the student may work on. Project-based learning is also referred as a systematic teaching method where it will engage the student in learning essential knowledge and life-enhancing skill through an extended student influence inquiry process structured around complex and authentic questions, which is carefully designed products and the tasks or what we call activities. Why this is essential? Why project-based learning? As we are considering the present era, or we are focusing on the imparting the skills among the students. Skills are very essential, the part of every individual's life. And to get the skills, the individual student or the team of the student have to work themselves on a certain activity and the task. Instead of, we are spoon feeding the things to the student being a teacher. We are expecting that I should deliver, being a teacher, I should deliver a maximum things to the student so that it will be easy to the student to just get and remember and just proceed further. Instead, what we can do is we can help them to choose the topic, choose the activity, and we work as a mentor or the facilitator to perform the task and activity in the chosen topic or the area. As I mentioned, why project-based learning? So this is a learning pyramid. And if you look at the learning pyramid, it is sectioned into the two parts. The lower one is a participatory teaching method and the upper one is a passive teaching method. If you look at the lower one, and that is further divided into again some few sections, and the first sections we'll see here, that is nothing but teaching others. If I go from bottom up, you'll see the teaching other will provide you the 90% learning. When somebody teaches something to the other, he or she will learn the 90% of the things that he is going to teach, that he is going to learn. Second section is practice by doing. And here the project-based learning, here is the PBL lies. That is project-based learning, practice by doing. And this is nothing but the 75%. The 75% learning will happen by doing. Therefore, this will help us a lot in order to impart what we are expected to impart among the student fraternity. Therefore, we can opt this technique and the tool as a part of our regular pedagogy, regular teaching learning process. And the next one is a group discussions, which will help us to get a 50% of the learning, 50% of the learning. And if I move on the next half, where the passive teaching methods are the methods usually we consider, and most of us are focusing on these things. So what exactly the percentage? If you look at the demonstrations, which will be a 30%, audio visual, which will be of 20%, reading, which will be of 10%, lectures, if we simply deliver the content monotonously, which will be only 5%. Therefore, we have to understand and we have to decide ourselves to go for the participative teaching process or the participative teaching method, where the participation of the students and learners are essential. Then, importantly, the project-based learning is providing the skills which includes, as we are allowing every individual to the activity that we have assigned or the student have chosen. Therefore, we have to consider this method, which includes the communication and presentation skills, which will help to impart and improve organization and time management skill. They may perform some sort of research. They may perform some sort of asking the questions and preparing the questions and collecting the questionnaires. That is basically referred as inquiry skill. They may go for self-assessment. They may go for the reflections when it is a question of learning something which is some challenges, which is some challenging to the learner. Then there is obviously the reflexive skill is essential. Group participation, leadership, and the critical thinking will be the skill which a student may acquire through this. This will help the student to reflect on their own ideas, opinions, and help them to make decisions that will affect the project outcome. Very important thing here, as far as the project-based learning is referred as outcome-based learning. And we know that recent changes in the norms of UGC, and we are witnessing that outcome-based educations. Everyone is thinking about the outcome-based educations. We are expecting, we being a teachers are expecting what is the outcome of my teaching learning process. and this will help us to the map the outcome of the learning process. We can design the rubrics accordingly, and it will help us to get that results of the outcome. Here we have to understand where exactly this PBL is going to fit in the context of Bloom's taxonomy. As everyone are familiar with different levels of Bloom's taxonomy, and these are the different levels of Bloom's taxonomy. Remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. But as far as PBL is concerned, where exactly it is going to fit? Because as far as learning is concerned, according to Bloom, it has got 3 domains of learning. And considering these 3 domains and the different levels of learning, it is going to fit in some apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. And look at the 3 domains of learning, which includes cognitive, that is nothing but mental skill. We are referring knowledge, which is referred to the knowledge. Affective domain, which is considered as the attitude or the self, and psychomotor, which is very essential domain of learning, which will help the learner or the student to acquire the skill. So PBL will focus on, PBL will help the student to acquire the skill with this domain. This is nothing but a psychomotor domain. When the psychomotor domain skill will be enhanced, when somebody is doing something through some project, through some activity assigned, or himself or herself, through out of his or her curiosity, then it is possible to acquire the skill. And if we focus on the project-based learning or some sort of experiential learning, then it would be easy to us to impart the skill what we are intended to impart among the student fraternity. Here is another thing that is associated with learning, and that's why there is called a learning framework. As far as learning framework is concerned, learning framework is related to core academic, stretch learning. The core academics means the things associated with our subjects and the topic. Then stretch learning, which will be delivering the content and the stretching the student's curiosity and learning beyond the certain requirement. That is what stretch learning. Therefore, learning criteria which is deployed and devised in order to assess the learning of the students or learning of the learners into 2 parameters, which are relevance and rigor. If you look at this matrix, where you will see relevance is low when rigor is low. And what will happen in this matrix? When you are in this A, where the teacher will work. When you are in a B, that means where the student will work. In this case, the relevance is high, but low rigor. Student will work. When the relevance is low and the student is going to think, which is what rigor is high, and we are expecting that student will think and work. That is what basically the expectations as far as project-based learning is concerned. Where the student has to think on student has to work, because whatever we ask the student at any point of the time, instead of thinking themselves, they are just going to search. It's in the present era, they are just Google it out. There is a simple thing happening, and as we are witnessing those things recently. As far as, again, the learning criteria is concerned, two more things are here. That is what learner engagement. Learner engagement is essential when it is happening, when the students are doing something and they are getting motivated and they are going to commit something to them to learn something. Then personal skill development, which is another criteria where we can impart and we can help them to acquire the required skill. And another essential skill which is necessary, that is called lifelong learning. That is referred as a lifelong learning. Everyone is expecting that the student should be a lifelong learner. When we expect the student or the learner should be a lifelong learner, because every age, every stage of the life, every individual has to learn something new, something different. As technology is going to evolve, technology is evolving, and the technology is challenging every individual to learn something in order to use it. At least for using it, we have to learn something. Therefore, instead of seeking the help of someone, primarily, if we develop the curiosity, if we develop the self-learning ability among the student, so that they may learn, they may enhance that capability and use throughout the life. That is basically essential, and that will be one of the important parameter can be imparted through a project-based learning. So there are different ways and the mechanism that can be adopted as far as project-based learning is concerned. But in this session, I'm just going to, as I planned, that I'm going to just introduce what exactly PBL and how we can use, or rather, how it will help the student or the learner in order to learn and in order to impart the skill. Then the next, the technique or the methodology which is recently introduced since 2014, it is devised and employed most of the organization and education institute. Beyond that, we don't consider only is the pedagogy. This is one of the area where any individual can pursue his or her career. You'll see there are a lot of master courses on design thinking. You'll see there are a lot of area where design things, rather every area of life, I'll say, where design thinking is going to impact a lot. Therefore, I decided for discussion today, design thinking methodology or design thinking approach that can help the students to develop this approach and help them to grow and solve the problems. This approach is related to solving the problems, dealing with the problems. There might be question arises in every individual's mind. If I'm from the history fraternity or history faculty, then what kind of problems I'm going to solve or my student is going to solve? See, when there is a necessity to deploy something or develop something, for example, if we consider the planning of urban planning, like a smart city, Then in the history, there are a lot of things happen, lot of smart things the people already have used, deployed, and help them to grow and help them to solve the problems of the people in those era. So if we study those things, we critically analyze those things and help to make the decision, help to make or solve the present problem, or provide the support in order to decision making, or in order to deploy the something which is essential for deploying. Primarily, we have to understand what exactly the design thinking is. Design thinking is a process, or design thinking is a mindset or approach. Design thinking has been classified into two. The first is mindset and approach, and the second is the process. Design thinking consists of solving the problem by finding and processing whatever informations available or collected from real world, people's experience, feedback, and applying creativity, critical thinking, and communicating it to deal with the problem. As I mentioned, one of the example, urban planning or smart city concept. Government is planning to implement the smart city. So what was happening in the history as far as basically water supply management and water supply chain deployment is concerned? In the history, if we consider the case of Pune, in history there was a based water supply system implemented in history. Therefore, can we learn something from that, and can we criticize on those things, and can we extract the informations, can we extract something which will help us to deploy the water supply schemes and the systems in a smart city project? This is what the design thinking will help. It is an approach which is characterized as a best methodology for innovation. Innovation is something which we add on the existing thing, which will make something easy and simple, which will help to deal with the problem. It is a methodology to innovate, help to innovate, and integrate human, business, and technical factors in problem forming, solving, and designing. Design thinking encourages creative considerations of innovative solutions, which can be applied to any field, as I mentioned, any field that includes higher educations. There are different approaches, challenges from the point of view of the end user, which calls for deep understanding of users' unmet needs. As I mentioned, design thinking is a mindset and approach. It is classified in two parts. One is mindset and approach, and the second is a process. The mindset and approach, that is human-centered and empathic. Empathy is a very essential factor considered in design thinking, along with human-centered. Next is a collaborative, optimistic. Collaboration is essential, optimism is essential, and experimental. The mindset and approach should be human-centered and empathic, should be collaborative, should be optimistic, and should be experimental. There are certain characteristics of the design thinking. which includes ambiguity. If there is a problem for making a decision, then design thinking will help. If I'm not able to make a decision, that means I'm in ambiguous situation. This is one situations where design thinking will help. This is a collaborative where we can improve the result, or if we can help us to solve the problem effectively through a collaboration. We can include the constructiveness of every individual in the team, or every individual in the system and the process where we are going to consider solving the problem. Curiosity is very essential part of the characteristics of design thinking, as we know that we are born curious. But as we grow older, we lost a curiosity. We lose a curiosity. Why? We have to think of what is basically there that we lose a curiosity. And the curiosity, we have to help the student to increase or enhance their curiosity, so that every time, whatever they are going to learn, whatever they are going to watch, whatever they are going to see, whatever they are going to observe, wherever they might be, they will use their curiosity. The curiosity will help to innovate. Curiosity will help every individual to increase the creativity, go for the creativity. Empathy is a very essential part in our characteristics of design thinking, where we have to think in the perspective of the user. Primarily, design thinking is techniques, or design thinking is primarily used in industry in huge way in order to develop the product. Therefore, in design thinking, user is considered. Users means end user of the product. So I have to put myself in the place of the user, okay, of whom I have to solve the problem of, and I have to think in his or her way. He or she might be from somewhere at some location, geographical locations, or he might be having some culture, different cultural background. He might be having different educational level. He might be having different things associated with it. That I have to, that every individual has to think while considering basically solving the problems, or considering implementing a design thinking. Holism, that means instead of considering a small parts, we have to consider as a whole, a holistic approach. And this to be not ended with developing or solving the problem, then we have to take the feedback of it, and based on the feedback, we have to improve it. And this process is called iteration. I mean, this should not stop. It should be evolved. It should be iterated. It should be a repetitive process in order to improve, in order to evolve. The non-judgmental way. No one should be a judgmental in basically a design thinking approach. Instead of having a judgmental, we should be a non-judgmental, and should have openness in order to have the implementation of